Hello and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's Wednesday Interlude, in which I shine the spotlight on Anthony Trollope. Anthony Trollope was born on the 24th of April 1815 and was an English novelist of the mid-Victorian era. In his novels he portrayed all the social prejudices and individual psychology of the era. Among his best-known works is the series of 6 novels set in the imaginary county of Barsetshire, and collectively known as the Chronicles of Bassett. They are The Warden, Barchester Towers, Dr. Thorne, Framley Parsonage, The Small House at Allington, and The Last Chronicle of Bassett. The series known as the Palliser Novels, or the Parliamentary Novels, are also a well-known group of 6 books. They are Can You Forgive Her?, Phineas Finn, the Irish member, the Eustace Diamonds, Phineas Redux, the Prime Minister, and the Duke's Children. In all, Trollope wrote 47 novels. Anthony Trollope, Anthony's father, was a son of landed gentry. Thomas Trollope wanted his sons to be raised as gentlemen and to attend Oxford or Cambridge. Anthony Trollope suffered much misery in his boyhood owing to the disparity between the privileged background of his parents and their comparatively small means. Born in London, Anthony attended Harrow School for 3 years from the age of 7, and then went to Winchester College, where he remained for another 3 years. But he had to return to Harrow as a day boy to reduce the cost of his education. These 2 public schools ranked as 2 of the most elite schools in England, but Trollope had no money and no friends. In his autobiography, Trollope records his misery and ill treatment by older boys at these schools. At the age of 12 he fantasized about suicide. However, he also daydreamed constructing elaborate imaginary worlds. Although Anthony's father failed as a lawyer and as a farmer, his mother, Frances Trollope, made a name for herself as a writer, soon earning a good income. His father's affairs, however, went from bad to worse. He gave up his legal practice entirely and failed to make enough income from farming to pay rent to his landlord, Lord Northwick. In 1834 he fled to Belgium to avoid arrest for debt. The whole family moved to a house near Bruges, where they lived entirely on Frances's earnings. While in Belgium, Anthony received an offer of a clerkship in the General Post Office, obtained through a family friend. He returned to London in the autumn of 1834 to take up this post. Thomas Trollope died the following year. According to Trollope, the first 7 years of my official life were neither creditable to myself nor useful to the public service. At the post office he acquired a reputation for unpunctuality and insubordination. A debt of £12 to a tailor fell into the hands of a moneylender and grew to over £200. The lender regularly visited Trollope at his work to demand payments. Trollope hated his work, but saw no alternative and lived in constant fear of dismissal. In 1841 an opportunity to escape offered itself. a postal surveyor's clerk in Central Ireland, was reported as being incompetent and in need of replacement. The position was not regarded as a desirable one at all, but Trollope, in debt and in trouble at his office, volunteered for it, and his supervisor, William Maberly, eager to be rid of him, appointed him to the position. His professional role as a post office surveyor brought him into contact with Irish people, and he found them pleasant company. The Irish people did not murder me, nor did they even break my head. I soon found them to be good-humoured, clever, the working classes very much more intelligent than those of England, and hospitable. While in Ireland, he met and married Rose Heseltine in 1844. Though Trollope had decided to become a novelist, he had accomplished very little writing during his first 3 years in Ireland. At the time of his marriage, he had only written the first of 3 volumes of his first novel, The Macdermots of Ballycloran. Within a year of his marriage, he finished that work. Trollope began writing on the numerous long train trips around Ireland he had to take to carry out his postal duties, setting very strict goals about how much he would write each day. He eventually became one of the most prolific writers of all time. Significantly, many of his earliest novels have Ireland as their setting, reflecting Trollope's attachment to the country. In all, Trollope wrote 4 novels about Ireland. 2 were written during the Great Famine, while a third deals with the famine as a theme. The Macdermots of Ballycloran chronicles the tragic demise of a small Catholic landowning family in the Protestant-dominated Ireland of the mid-19th century. When it was published in 1847, Trollope records, "It was a dismal failure." The Kellys and the O'Kellys is a humorous comparison of the romantic pursuits of the landed gentry. The reception of the Irish works left much to be desired. Henry Colvin wrote to Trollope, "It is evident that readers do not like novels on Irish subjects as well as on others." In particular, magazines such as the New Monthly magazine, which included reviews that attacked the Irish for their actions during the famine, were representative of the dismissal by English readers of any work written about the Irish. In 1851, Trollope was sent to England, charged with investigating and reorganising rural mail delivery in south-western England and South Wales. The 2-year mission took him over much of Great Britain, often on horseback. Trollope describes this time as 2 of the happiest years of my life. In the course of it, he visited Salisbury Cathedral, and there, according to his autobiography, he conceived the plot of the Warden, dealing primarily with the clergy and landed gentry, which became the first of the 6 Barsetshire novels, and was Trollope's first major success. Although the profits were not large, the book received notices in the press and brought Trollope to the attention of the novel-reading public. He immediately began work on Barchester Towers, the second Barsetshire novel, and is probably his best known of this series. Upon its publication in 1857, he received an advance payment of £100, equivalent to about £10,000 in today's money, against his share of the profits. Like the Warden, Barchester Towers did not obtain large sales, but it helped to establish Trollope's reputation. In his autobiography, Trollope writes, "It achieved no great reputation, but it was one of the novels which readers were called upon to read." For the following novel, The Three Clerks, he was able to sell the copyright for a lump sum of £250. He preferred this to waiting for a share of future profits. Trollope's other major series, the Palliser Novels, which overlap with the Barsetshire novels, concerned itself with politics, with the wealthy, industrious Plantagenet Palliser later Duke of Omnium, and his delightfully spontaneous, even richer wife, Lady Glencora, featured prominently, though, as with the BARSETSHIRE series, many other well-developed characters populated each novel. And in one, the Eustace Diamonds, the Pallisers play only a small role. Although Trollope had been happy and comfortable in Ireland, he felt that as an author he should live within easy reach of London. In 1859 he sought and obtained a position in the post office as surveyor to the Eastern District, comprising Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, Cambridgeshire, Huntingdonshire and most of Hertfordshire. In late 1859 Trollope learned of preparations for the release of the Cornhill magazine, to be published by George Maurice Smith and edited by William Makepeace Thackeray. He wrote to Thackeray offering to provide short stories for the new magazine. Thackeray and Smith both responded, Thackeray urging Trollope to contribute and Smith offering £1,000 for a novel, provided that a substantial part of it could be available to the printer within 6 weeks. Trollope offered Smith Castle Richmond, his third Irish novel, which he was then writing. But Smith declined to accept an Irish story and suggested a novel dealing with English clerical life, as he had Barchester Towers. Trollope then devised the plot of Framley Parsonage, setting it near Barchester so that he could make use of characters from the Barsetshire novels. Framley Parsonage proved enormously popular, establishing Trollope's reputation with the novel-reading public and amply justifying the high price that Smith had paid for it. The early connection to Cornhill also brought Trollope into the London circle of artists, writers and intellectuals, not least among whom were Smith and Thackeray. By the mid-1860s, Trollope had reached a fairly senior position within the post office hierarchy, despite ongoing differences with Rowland Hill, who was at that time Chief Secretary to the Postmaster General. Postal history credits Trollope with introducing the pillar box, the ubiquitous mailbox in the United Kingdom. He was earning a substantial income from his novels. He had overcome the awkwardness of his youth, made good friends in literary circles, and hunted enthusiastically. In 1865, Trollope was among the founders of the Liberal Fortnightly Review. When Hill left the post office in 1864, Trollope's brother-in-law, John Tilley, was then Under Secretary to the Postmaster General, was appointed to the vacant position. Trollope applied for Tilley's old post, but was passed over in favour of a subordinate, Frank Ives Scudamore. In the autumn of 1867, Trollope resigned his position at the post office, having by that time saved enough to generate an income equal to the pension he would lose by leaving before the age of 60. Trollope had long dreamt of taking a seat in the House of Commons. As a civil servant, however, he was ineligible for such a position. His resignation from the post office removed this problem, and he almost immediately began seeking a seat for which he might stand. In 1868 he agreed to stand as a Liberal candidate in the borough of Beverley in the East Riding of Yorkshire. Trollope described his period of campaigning in Beverley as the most wretched fortnight of my manhood. He spent a total of £400 on his campaign. The election was held on the 17th of November 1868. The novelist finished last of 4 candidates, with the victory going to the 2 Conservatives. After the defeat in Beverley, Trollope concentrated entirely on his literary career. While continuing to produce novels rapidly, he also edited the St. Paul's magazine, which published several of his novels in serial form. After his death, Trollope's autobiography appeared and was a bestseller in London. Trollope's downfall in the eyes of the critics stemmed largely from this volume. Even during his writing career, reviewers tended increasingly to shake their heads over his prodigious output. But when Trollope revealed that he strictly adhered to a daily writing quota and admitted that he wrote for money, he confirmed his critics' worst fears. Writers were expected to wait for inspiration, not to follow a schedule. Writers such as William Thackeray, George Eliot and Wilkie Collins admired and befriended Trollope, and Eliot noted that she could not have embarked on so ambitious a project as Middlemarch without the precedent set by Trollope in his own novels of the fictional yet thoroughly alive county of Barsetshire. Other contemporaries of Trollope praised his understanding of the commonplace world of institutions, official life and daily business. He is one of the few novelists who find the office a creative environment. W.H. Auden wrote of Trollope as follows: "Of all novelists in any country, Trollope best understands the role of money. Compared with him, even Balzac is too romantic." It is generally acknowledged that the sweeping satire on money, The Way We Live Now, 1875, is his masterpiece. Some critics today have a particular interest in Trollope's portrayal of women. He caused remark even in his own day for his deep insight and sensitivity to the inner conflicts caused by the position of women in Victorian society. Notable fans have included Alec Guinness, who never travelled without a Trollope novel, the former British Prime Ministers Harold Macmillan and Sir John Major, the first Canadian Prime Minister John A. Macdonald, the economist John Kenneth Galbraith, the merchant banker Siegmund Warburg, who said that reading Anthony Trollope surpassed a university education, the English judge Lord Deving, and the American novelist Sue Grafton, among others. Trollope died in Marylebone, London, on the 6th of December 1882, aged 67, and is buried in Kensal Green Cemetery near the grave of his contemporary Wilkie Collins. In this brief introduction, I can only hit some of the highlights, but if you'd like to discover more about Anthony Trollope's life and work, I refer you to Trollope, a commentary by Michael Sadler, and Trollope by Victoria Glendinning. In the resources section below, you will find links to Project Gutenberg of 20 of his works, including his autobiography. In all, there are 47 novels for you to discover and explore, scores of short stories, and a few books on travel. There are also links to the YouTube playlists for the Barsetshire Chronicles and the PALLISERS for you to enjoy. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of Anthony Trollope's works and what you thought of them. So that's all, folks, but I'll be back soon with another BookTube video.